All right, everyone, right on the hour. We've had a really good uptake in terms of people registering for this event. So we'll sort of give it a minute, no more, for everybody else to funnel in. But just as we're waiting, where's everyone calling in from? I can see I'm calling in from Sydney, Australia, and Jake obviously in Richmond in London. But yeah, we'd love to hear where are you guys calling in from? Sydney as well. Thanks, Ali.
Yeah, unfortunately, quite a rainy London today, Adam.
Of course.
Probably very different in Sydney.
Wouldn't have it any other way. Duncan, nice. Birmingham.
New Zealand.
Luke, nice. Dundee. Look at that.
Our
Like
Australian colleague.
5 or 6 countries straight off the bat. Awesome. Ipswich. Excellent. Well, say hi to Anna. Jake from there. So listen,
definitely well, Duncan.
We'll get straight into this today. How to make more on Microsoft is clearly a topic that's close to everybody's heart. We're going to look at this today from a couple of different lenses, and I think one of the big takeaways here is there's more money to be made to extend the expertise and investment that you've already made within the Microsoft stack. And from who's speaking today. So my name's Adam. I'm one of the co-founders of a software company called CloudOlive. Prior to CloudOlive, I was actually the first employee for Autotask here in Australia. So I'm talking 2010, 2011, and was with them through the Datto transition for a couple of years. And so really stemmed from the PSA setup. And one of the things that I've always recognized for years now is if those systems are configured well, especially from a billing perspective, they're awesome. If they're not, people want to jump ship on a regular basis, go to another one, and often run into similar challenges. When Datto took over, merged, I learned there's no such thing as a merger when those two companies came together. But when Datto and Autotask came together, it took me to the UK for a few years and was fortunate enough to work and hire Jake into a sales role there probably 6 or 7 years ago now. So I'll hand it over to yourself, Jake, and you can introduce yourself and what you're doing now.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. It's quite funny how this has turned 360, hasn't it? From you hiring me as a fresh-faced SDR to now running webinars together. It's really cool. But yeah, lovely to meet everyone. I'm Jake Webber-Cady, Director of Sales here at Inforcer. I am a bit newer to the space than Adam, but I've been working with MSPs for the past 6 years. Spent a couple of years at Datto, and then jumped ship over to ConnectWise for all my sins. And then I was there for 4 years, had an amazing ride there, building out their cybersecurity team, and joined Inforcer five months ago. Into startup life, it was always something that I really wanted to get involved with, really feel like you're a part of a journey and you can see that needle moving. And I'm loving every minute of it and excited to tell you a little bit about what we do today.
Yeah, good stuff. And even just to reiterate, we've done, this is the third webinar that we've done with Inforcer across the different geographies. They have resources. And one of the big triggers for me to get in touch with Jamie and Jake and the team was we see Inforcer clients, joint clients of Inforcer and CloudOlive, reconciling Inforcer through CloudOlive so they can bill their customers accurately. And the margin that some MSPs or many MSPs are making on it, I was like, this is awesome. We need to help share the word from a really exciting startup in terms of Inforcer and what they're doing. And it's really cool to be sharing the stage with you, Jake. So in terms of today's flow, some of the insights, I think just taking a step back and seeing where the tailwinds are, really around Microsoft, specifically around security, and why the whole analogy of the rising tide floats all boats, and how to begin thinking about optimizing your own sort of growth streams into that. We will jump very deeply then into the margin improvement strategies is what we put there. CloudOlive is very, very focused on the month-end billing around cloud services across all your suppliers, okay? And when we speak with new MSPs, we try to understand with them, do you lay awake at night because you are worried about losing revenue or leaking revenue, or do your customers ask you queries when you invoice them? Two very different problem areas that we can work through how to identify and actually how to fix them. We're also going to touch on Microsoft. We'll focus this around Microsoft, of course, but what are some of the common pitfalls we see that often go under the radar that is costing you money every single month on a recurring basis? And once we sort of give a rundown of how to fix all of that, then we'll move into where are some additional revenue streams specifically around Inforcer, and increasing the sort of the security posture you have with your client base. So just by way of a quick introduction, the origin of CloudOlive was all of our Autotask partners would ask us on a monthly basis or very regular basis, we have all of these suppliers, 15 different vendors and distributors. How does everybody else manage all of the license fluctuations on a monthly basis? And for 10 years, that question really started to frustrate me enough that my co-founder and I set out to solve that very broad problem. So if you can see it there, we built a way to ingest data in a really, really intelligent manner. We standardize it into what CloudOlive cares about. And then based on our deep understanding of the PSA market, here, Autotask and ConnectWise, regardless of how you've configured that system, CloudOlive will prompt you in terms of where you've got forms of billing risk, okay? And just to announce on this webinar, we've got a new module that everyone here will be able to get access to in a free version, where we noticed NCE was going to be a headache when it started to come out 4 years ago. We bought the domain NCEasy thinking, well, at some point we'll probably try and solve whatever that problem is going to arrive into. This week, we've actually done that. So we'll be able to share with you some very specific and really, really cool updates for the first time here. And yeah, so I've known Jamie for a very long time, probably 10 plus years as well, and a lot of the team here, but awesome to see so many, I guess, familiar faces coming together in Inforcer and growing well. Jake, why don't you give us a rundown of your experience in the last 5-6 months in being behind the desk there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a hell of a ride. Working harder than I've ever worked, it's safe to say. Startup life is hectic, building processes, but yeah, we're a really exciting company, and I'm hugely passionate about the team we're building. So similar to yourself, Adam, and similar to some of the really successful vendors in the space that have actually come from the MSP world, you know, they've either been in an MSP or they've been working in vendor land for many years. Ultimately, our kind of origin is from within inside an MSP. So Rory, our technical director, he set out to solve one of his own challenges, where he was managing multiple Microsoft clients all over the place, and it was just consuming so much resource. And then Rich Thompson actually founded an MSP and run an MSP. And then Jamie and Will, you know, coming from Autotask and ConnectWise, deeply understand the space as well. So we are an organization, we are a software platform focused on helping managed service providers manage Microsoft policies at scale across all of their clients. We're 100% MSP centric. A really cool story is we've got 80 plus investors, all from the MSP community. So either in MSPs themselves, from vendors, all a part of our journey and really helping us grow our community. And we've been building the product for around 3 years, only been taking it to market really since January. And since January, we've onboarded 200 MSPs as paying customers. So we're really solving a critical challenge. We are located in London. We're a London headquartered software business, which again, I'm quite passionate about because a lot of the vendors in the space are obviously US headquartered. Of course, we do have US offices and Australian offices as well. But yeah, I'm loving every minute of it so far.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's get into it. One of the big trends is, and I know that the next slide has Microsoft doing Microsoft things for the last 40 odd years, but just talk us through why you've hit yourselves to the back of Microsoft here.
Yeah, I think, look, Microsoft and Microsoft security is here. It's here to stay. And really they're taking over. You know, they spend billions every year investing in their security portfolio, but ultimately it comes back to that inherent challenge that Microsoft is not built for MSPs. So with this becomes a massive challenge for managed service providers. And ultimately that's where companies like CloudOlive and Inforcer fit in, is we bring our knowledge and expertise down to the MSP to help them consume this big beast that is Microsoft and ultimately deliver a service to their customers. A big thing that we're seeing, Adam, is we're even seeing things like Secure Score, which is a Microsoft metric essentially based around how much of the Microsoft technology are you consuming, feature in cyber insurance policies now. Now that just speaks to the power that Microsoft have. And ultimately another big trend is we're seeing Microsoft invest in massively in security technology and just provide that free of charge as part of a business premium license that many of you MSPs are already using for your clients.
Yep. Yeah, we've actually, there's a 2030 government initiative down here in Australia as well. Similar thing. They're the only vendor named specifically in that protocol of companies needing to invest their time around it. And I guess that speaks to this slide in particular, just the dominance, one of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you've got a market cap of $3 trillion, you've got a lot of money to invest in your marketing and your strategy. And ultimately that is what's led to them taking over. You know, and further to that, their technology has improved no end, especially in the security realm. But, you know, you can see there just how many global users they have. You can then see a bit of a breakdown of the geographies. Obviously, the US is the leader, but you see the UK there in second place. So massive adoption in terms of our region and our market here. And then I know you've got quite a cool story, Adam, about the Teams adoption piece there. So I'm going to fire over to you for that one.
It was quite funny. 4 years ago, so CloudOlive formed in a startup incubator, and that's where I met my co-founder, and it was run by a VC. And a lot of the slides in early sort of the couple of weeks that we were in there, a lot of it was talking around product market fit. So I saw this is 2020 odd when we started, and I saw this picture. So I sent it to everyone in the group and I went, hey guys, how about this for product market fit? And someone wrote back and said, no, that's called product market steal. And there was a bit of a back and forth, a bit of a chat around how Microsoft for decades now acquire, give for free, increase price, and away they go again. And you can see the incredible spike that occurred then, to the point that Salesforce then bought Slack. And funny enough, about a month and a bit ago, they've now legally taken, like Microsoft got a little bit of trouble for this. Not sure of the actual outcome of that, but product market fit / steal is the way that we look at this. And like I touched on some of the Australian government initiatives and how they're aligning around Microsoft, and they've got huge investment actually around specifically cybersecurity, even additional fines, etc., that they're looking to embed in over the next, like up until 2030. What are you learning? Like we see EMEA, GDPR, like we have that conversation constantly. That's been in the sort of talk track for a long time now. What are you seeing, Jake, being in this world in your region?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of compliance starting to come down from you know, the European Union, from specific countries as well. And ultimately how it ties back to why we're here today is Microsoft are positioning themselves as a part of that. You know, that is why they are on cyber insurance policies. They feature in the NIS2 recommendations. So many of you on the call will understand or have heard of the NIS2 directive, which is coming down from the European Union. And some of the recommendations there highly impact the MSP space. And ultimately, a lot of it comes down to the Microsoft technology. And are you configuring your customers in a secure fashion? And you can see we got an image there which really shows the overlap between Microsoft Business Premium, the NIS2 recommendations, and then also where Inforcer pieces into that in terms of helping you as an MSP deliver some of those security controls. We're also seeing a trend over here where compliance as a service is becoming a huge revenue stream for managed service providers. I was in a really interesting webinar a couple of weeks ago where they presented on the fact that compliance as a service, or CAS, will be worth an estimated $75 billion in it as an industry by the end of 2026. So we're seeing a lot of that over here, Adam. Things like cyber essentials, where MSPs are taking their customers through frameworks and ultimately getting them certified in certain remits. And the next big thing is going to be NIS2 for our European Union clients. And Inforcer is actually helping our MSPs keep their clients compliant to some of these regulations.
Yeah, I guess touching on business premium, obviously business premium says here, you're obviously a lot closer to this than I am. The talk track occasionally I've kind of felt over the last couple of years is Microsoft best of breed? Like this specific Gartner Magic Quadrant tells a story. How are they tracking, and what type of investment, or why are they up there now? Why are they up there now?
Yeah, so if you look at what they've done with Business Premium, ultimately Business Premium now for an MSP is the go-to license for their clients. The reason for that is, Microsoft no longer is just a productivity platform. If we roll back 5 years ago, it was Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Now in Business Premium, you get all of those things, but you also get Intune to help manage devices. You also get endpoint security, you get email security, you get multi-factor authentication. All of these elements are pieces that MSPs up until now have been paying third-party tools for. And there's good reason for that, because 3 years ago, the Microsoft technology would have been laughed off the table. You've only got to look at the endpoint security as a piece of it. And 3 years ago, it was terrible. Now it is a leading EDR technology. And you can see there, I like the comment in the chat, but in the latest Magic Quadrant kind of rating for endpoint security, Microsoft was second place out of all of these vendors. And I would imagine it's going to go into first place pretty soon. The reason for that is Microsoft are investing $1 billion a year just in R&D for their security portfolio alone, which is more than most of these endpoint security's revenue put together. So we're seeing a massive improvement and advancement in the technology itself.
And like we obviously work with a lot of the Sophos, the Sentinels, the Trend, the CrowdStrike, like you name them. Actually, CloudOlive reconciles all of these things on a monthly basis. With Microsoft investment going that way, I guess, or assume, can you talk us through a client switching one off and just making more money like overnight? You've seen that?
Yeah, we have. And look, it's a sad story for some of the third parties, but ultimately it's what Microsoft do. They take over. So we're working with MSPs now who, because Inforcer has given them a platform to effectively manage the policies related to the endpoint security, they can turn off the third party. So we had one that turned off Sophos on thousands of endpoints, and they just turned on Defender for Business, which is the EDR in Business Premium, and they saved £600,000 per year, which went straight to the bottom line.
Yeah, and I guess if people have bundled things together and it's not listed out, easy win. And likewise, even if they have swapping it from a vendor name to EDR or other, same outcome, right? You can still have an extra line item, and we can actually show you how that can still be managed. But yeah, it's definitely something to be considered moving forward, especially with the traction and the investment trajectory that they've got. Onto the pains, yeah. Jake. Why don't you start here?
Yeah, look, I guess people don't need us to tell them on the call that keeping up with the ever-going security changes and landscape is brutal. So that is a huge challenge, is how do you keep up with the ever-changing compliance regulations, NIS2, cyber essentials, to ensure that your clients are secure and they can get the right insurance policies. In addition to that, how do you keep up to date with all the changing technologies? You know, you are small businesses. So if we go down to the blue box underneath, how can you solve some of these challenges? And that is really through standardization. And a lot of our MSPs are doing that through Microsoft Business Premium, because it gives you pretty much everything you need, apart from some of the tools like an RMM and so on. You want to look at automation. Resources is still one of the biggest challenges within any MSP. So how can you automate and remove a load of the manual workload that goes into configuring things like a Microsoft tenant? And that's where we come in. And then where to start? How do you adopt some of these frameworks and standards and then deliver that to your customers? So Inforcer is not only a software platform, we actually provide expertise, and we provide a Discord community where you can speak to our professionals who have got years and years experience in the Microsoft realm to help figure out some of this. But ultimately, I'll hand over to you for the money side, Adam, because I know you're seeing some challenges in that side.
Yeah, for sure. When we started 4 years ago, we thought, can we help MSPs not misbill or underbill? We had no idea it was going to be as complex and fragmented as it has turned out to be. And I still believe it's the most fragmented part of an MSP, having taken often data sets that have different layouts, taking PDFs, taking some's in arrears, some's in advance. Your PSA is set up in a specific way. Your customers have got requirements that are a little bit unique, and you're just expected to manage that, or someone oftentimes in your head every single month. So that complexity piece is something that we will talk about, and it leads into the next one, is around how can we help? And a big part about what CloudOlive does initially is exactly the same as how you would go into a new client and do some form of network assessment in terms of what's the current state. 10 years in working and selling and implementing PSAs, that's where we've got to start. Okay, that's where we've got to start, because looking at the customer lens, so the invoice goes from these systems, your customer sim, like whatever your customer's seeing is a source of truth and a key bit of data that we need to make sure is accurate always, and everybody in the entire, all stakeholders have a real high level of confidence, so you get paid quicker. Okay, and when the way that we almost frame this is, what does best of breed look like? And you can invert these almost into your own questions. Okay, so are we confident that we're not leaking revenue? One of the almost little hard, one of the almost gotchas that we see with Microsoft in particular is when you're buying NCE and you're buying annually and you're selling monthly, or vice versa, like they're all called business premium. Oftentimes the SKU IDs are identical in some of these distributors. So it's hard even for integrated systems to differentiate them. I'll show you the margin impact when you get that wrong. And that is something that we see every single day, always. Once that's all lined up though, actually optimizing your margin, again, very time consuming and hard to do, and occasionally done. When vendors are changing their pricing, especially Microsoft, probably every 6 months now to align to FX rates, how are you managing that at the moment? The next one, coming from the client lens, and I'll touch on this quite a bit. We often try and solve problems specifically for MSPs, but actually putting yourself in the shoes of your clients and going, what do we expect to see on a recurring basis? Because if you can get them on auto charge, it means that you've built significant trust. When things fall apart, such as NCE renewals, all your different licenses, sure, there's been some improvements, but it's a very hard thing to manage. And if you get something wrong and get recommitted for another year, again, we see it all the time. You just have to live with it, right? The source of truth, especially around a user, having a clear definition. I love the exercise where you go into the different departments in your MSP and say, what do you define as a user? And don't prompt them. What do you define as a user to the sales team, to the admin team, to the management team? And just see the array of questions or feedback that comes back to you. If it's misaligned, it's a precursor to issues further down the track, okay? And it's typically always different. You want to try and standardize on that as close as possible. So sales, when they go out and do their thing, interfacing with the clients, everyone knows what to expect. And once you get all of this right, people buy these big PSA systems so they can track customer profitability. 90% in our experience do not get accurate customer profitability out of these systems. Part of it is because it's so hard to keep up to date with the different vendor costs, okay? Now, in terms of sort of what we're going to focus on, here's a list of all the different suppliers that we've got experience with. Clients are doing these with us every single month. I want to focus in where MSPs are buying their Microsoft from, typically on a tier 2, typically the Pax8s and the Ingrams and the Geocom's obviously big out in the UK. So this is where we're focusing on. You're likely going to them and you're buying from there. The first problem area to try and help and identify and solve, and it requires an audit. When people say, oh, I think we got it pretty under control. The truth of the matter is, if you've got 100 line items you're on billing in a monthly basis, 6 of those line items will have some form of error, okay? A macro error could be you've got a cost, you're not on billing at all. Naturally a big problem. Or you've stopped the billing in the PSA because the customer's called and it hasn't been switched off in the vendor portal. Like, all of these cost you money. By optimizing this and really just auditing this versus even optimizing, for every 10,000 pounds or euros that you're currently making, headline revenue, okay, so every 10,000 that you're getting now, there's about an extra 400 pounds or euros, between 4 and 5% uptick that's available just by getting this thing right. And this scales incredibly well, okay? Small, medium, or large. This stat actually has not changed drastically over the 4.5 years that we've been doing working on CloudOlive. We saw it at a very small client initially, and we've seen it on our largest customer who's doing hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of pounds every single month of cost. So when we go underneath the hood a little bit, just to have some questions that you can go and ask the team potentially, or think about yourselves. With NCE, let's say we're making 16% margin on it, okay? We're selling, the cost is 10 local currency, we're selling it for 11.90. If you miss 1 month, okay, you forget to bill for 1 month of this service, which I'm sure everybody on this call has got got their own use case of this. It's 6 months of margin that has disappeared for that service. Now, it could be a human error, it could be something else, even down to like Autotask force you to have an end date on your contract. ConnectWise doesn't, but you may actually have an end date or a cancel date, et cetera, inside the different setup there. That's a very common flag that is actually out of CloudOlive there, where there's literally something that's not getting billed. You think it is because it's there, the counts line up, but you're not making any revenue off of that. Every 1 month missed is 6 months of your margin that's been taken away. And a little bit more nuanced here. Okay, let's say that same license. Here we have a vendor service of monthly. So we're buying monthly. That's 20% more expensive than the annual, right? It's an E3. It looks like it's okay. We're billing it. The counts line up. You're literally losing money every single month on that very small nuance change. And this is something that almost universally, as you begin to get to scale, engineers may have ordered something wrong, admin may have keyed something in incorrectly. Your PSA may be a little bit muddled with lots of services at a similar name. It's just a hard thing. The second you pair them to the wrong service, you're actually losing money on that every single month. So the only solution to this really is the source of truth. What would you use? All of those distributors that we touched on earlier on in that little circle, a few slides back, they're going to be invoicing you for your Microsoft every single month. But our thinking around this, if you're more than, say, 8 to 10,000 local currency on a monthly basis, you want to be doing that at ideally every month, but very, very close to every month. As you scale up to 30 odd, you have to do it every single month. Otherwise, you will be missing out guaranteed from our personal experience in doing this every single month.
Yeah, I think Adam, I've think back to my ConnectWise days and speaking to some MSPs, they would literally be spending days at the end of each month trying to figure out and reconcile their vendor contracts. And I know that over the past couple of years, obviously distributors are trying to make it easier. So how are you working with the MSPs? I'm sure many on this call will be partnering with a Paxay or a Ingram or someone like that. So where does CloudOlive fit in with those MSPs?
Yeah, good question. About 40% of our clients, maybe a little bit less, but around 40% of our customers are buying from Pax. Majority have their integration built on and feeding into their relevant PSAs. We always go, if you've got an integration that you like and you trust, always keep that on. Have that working, great, okay? We also say that we expect to find stuff every single month for a couple of different reasons. All native integrations typically have a one-to-one relationship as an example. So the second anything comes to, hey, we got 2 tenants over here and one tenant up here and 2 clients, or vice versa. We got 2 clients in the Microsoft going into one in Auditask or ConnectWise. Once it gets outside of the realm of the norm, a lot of partners in our experience then switch off integrations and do things manually, okay? And there is a lot that can still happen from a end user perspective that stops an integration from behaving the way you ideally want it to. So we always think it doesn't take a lot of work to load in an invoice, which again is the amount of money that's going to be leaving your bank probably about 2 weeks later. So at a line by line item level, at a subscription by subscription, you can have the most granular comparison back to your PSA and provide absolute peace of mind in a near automated fashion, okay? And again, we work very, very closely with, we got about 20 odd distributors that we work with. The fact of the matter is we just find money every single month across an array of different areas, which just gradually gets optimized down. But that's typically how we work with Pax or any of the others.
Yeah, nice. I can vouch. My old man is one of your customers. and he was experiencing that very challenge, distributors or not, he was still having that, that horrible gut feeling in his body of every night. It's like, okay, are we billing all of our clients for the amount that we're getting charged? Because he'd look at his vendor invoices and he'd be like, blimey, this is going up every month. I don't see revenue moving up quite as linear to that.
Yeah, correct. It's a really valid point, right? If you can take a bill and if you run a report out of Paxay or out of vendor A and then into your PSA of choice, do they match? If they do, miraculous. You still don't even know if they match line by line by line, line by line, okay? And most MSPs go, well, we're making money, we'll move on to the next month. We don't think that that's good enough at all in this day and age, as things are getting tougher and tougher. The solution to revenue leakage is to be told exactly where you are missing out. Okay, so from underbilling, overbilling, down to the margins at a vendor by vendor level. And also over here, we've learned that there's pretty much 5 areas that MSPs can misbill each on a vendor level. So we just highlight these and then the user can prompt and go through. And the middle on the right there is, show me where the vendor unit cost doesn't match my Auditask or ConnectWise at an individual service level. We would love to help our partners tidy up their PSA so you can truly be in that 10% that can actually report on customer profitability in near real time. And then talking to some of the bespoke logic that some distributor, or pretty much every distributor can't handle is, what if we've got a multi-tenant environment? We got 1 tenant up in Microsoft and we got 2 or 3 or 5 there at school, there is something else. We've built CloudOlive truly from the ground up and saw all these pains and problems and then have built tech around them. And end client alignment here, really, really important. So putting your customer shoes on here. One thing is, if we solve revenue leakage, that's from the MSP lens. Looking at the customer view, if they have 32 business premium, just as an example, in our gold package, when you invoice them, if they don't have 32 of these other things, that's what we've learned is where the questions come back. And let's take Datto SaaS. It might be a £4 cost or a £4 revenue line as an example, and it might be 1 unit off. but it's taking you and everyone time to debug and work out what's happened. Should they be in alignment? So one of the things that we build to try and help with this, and this can be used as a quality control exercise. So, hey, all of my user-related services within my PSA, I'm just going to bucket them into this thing on the left-hand side here. My device, or my light user in the middle, and then my device things over here. And you can begin aligning a primary or multiple primaries, and it just begins to say, hey, when things fall out of alignment, we've got a primary here of 32, our AV down the bottom is only selling 6. Hey, FYI, you may want to consider upping that. And if you do, you've got $130 in this case, extra revenue. This takes about, once you sync your order task ConnectWise and build a couple of groups, okay, we're talking a couple of minutes to begin telling. Most of the time, it begins to tell we have gaps in our offboarding that need to be addressed, and it's costing us money. Okay, that's one side that we commonly see. The other side is the worst would be your customers paying for something that you're not actually delivering on, especially around the security side of things. So either one of those problem areas is super hard to find because they're all disconnected services in the relevant PSAs. We designed a way just to elevate that data and give it to you. So moving into the last bit, if you're buying from any one of these distributors, then this may be a good fit for you. And as I said, we're just launching this on this call now. So there's links and stuff to get in touch if this is of interest. But NCE has been such a difficult problem for so many MSPs. I can't imagine how much money has gone down the drain in all of it, or the industry as an entirety having to manage this, and distributors as well. I know that they've also struggled with this. So the way that we think about this is a few-fold. A single view that centralizes every bit of key information. So key information is all clients and services, okay? Number one. The next part would be, what about our expiration? So when's the renewal actually up and coming? You can see to the left of that, we've got the commitments and the billing frequencies as well. Also, how many unassigned licenses do we have? So a workflow that we were thinking about when we were building this was, if someone's placed an order in the last 6 days, remember that it sort of cuts out after a week, and we've got an unassigned user, should they have ordered a new one, or should they have just allocated the old one? And also the blue box that we see down here, if you click on that, it will actually index the individual users that are actually assigned to that. We've made it very easy in our first iteration, just be able to copy this and do stuff with it. This is here to support the admin teams. And I think everything we've built over time for an admin, like finance admin manager, it gives such incredible data that they can have confident conversations around process leaks to management, to sales, and really empowering the finance teams to automate as much as we possibly can in a responsible manner. So just to sum things up, right? MSP lens, stop revenue leakage, source of truth needs to come from the vendors. No ifs, no buts. Has to come from there to track and see if you're losing revenue. On the end client lens, which I think is even more important, actually they're equal importance, but the end client lens is you don't want to be impacted. You don't want to reduce any of the trust that you've currently built up over time. That data exists in your PSA only. How we group it, how we flag things, very, very simple to set up and get going. So the next step would be, there's an offer at the end just to, whoever you buy Microsoft from, if you run Audit Task or ConnectWise, we can do a complete audit and at least give you a baseline sanity, sleep easy at night check. Okay. By doing so, QA your distributor. You have to. There's so many other things that crop up that maybe mistakes come. You know, we will find them. Also QA the technicians. Just seeing, are we decommissioning things as expected? And we sort of close out on this is what you billing your customers in alignment with what they expect to see across user, device, site, maybe other. So Jake, after that, I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, that's really impactful stuff there, Rossi. I think, you know, revenue is hard to get in an MSP. You know, winning new clients, it must be even more heartbreaking to miss revenue when you should be billing for it.
Yeah, we say look at it as money found. Otherwise, you'll get a headache trying to backtrack that. But think of it as money found moving forward.
Yeah, Yeah, but I think, look, to segue into Enforcer, ultimately we're helping with many similar challenges to what you've just discussed there. It's around the visibility, it's around some of the standardization. So if you take us through, Adam, I'll talk a little bit through how we're helping, but also what are we seeing when it comes to Microsoft expertise in the MSP market.
Who's a good fit for you guys, have you learned?
I think ultimately our perfect fit are the ones that have their own expertise internally when it comes to Microsoft, and they're already adopting a lot of the technology that is a part of a business premium license. The reason they're a good fit is they're the ones that are spending hours and hours today manually configuring all of their tenants for their customers. With that being said, though, we can also help much smaller MSPs where they don't have the luxury of having a cloud consultant or a 365 guru. And that's where things like our knowledge base and our Discord community, and also the fact that we're now building a policy library. So almost acting as an extension to the MSPs team, where we give them access to our 365 consultants who are putting together best practices within the Microsoft realm and then feeding that back down to the MSP that might not have the expertise internally. So, we've mentioned business premium quite a lot. Again, it kind of relates back to that previous slide where it really does depend on your adoption and your expertise. But ultimately, 90% of MSPs that we speak to at Inforcer are trying to standardize on business premium. The reason for that is the increased security, some of the device management that's included, and the value. £18 per user per month. I'm sure many will be paying a little less through their resellers or distributors, but that's phenomenal value for what you get. So why do so many people underutilize it? It's down to the sheer complexity of managing Microsoft. It comes back to the fact that it is not built for MSPs. And the second point is many don't have the luxury of having 365 experts internally. It's like a 10-year journey to become really solid within the 365 realm. And that's just something that a lot of people don't have the time to do. So, we kind of set the scene there of what are the biggest challenges when it comes to managing the 365 security policies themselves. Ultimately, that's what we're built for. Inforcer is about helping businesses with the standardization. It's about helping people save time, so giving you resource back in the business. And it's about reducing risk through giving you visibility into all of your customers and where they are at against your set of best practices. And those are really the key challenges that we're solving in the industry today.
We talk now. Some product shots.
Yeah.
That's what everybody came for.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can just see, one thing I'm really passionate about and the dev team are passionate about here is the cleanness of our UI and just that modern feel. If you look at the vendors that are doing well in the space, they are laser focused on simplicity. And it all ties back to the fact that you don't have the expertise and resource to spend your time sifting around complex systems. So ultimately, Enforcer gives you visibility as an MSP into every single one of your 365 customer tenants. It gives you, key metrics such as their Microsoft Secure Score, which, as I mentioned at the start of the call, is now going to feature more and more in insurance policies, in compliance directives. So the fact that Enforcer can help you take your customers on a secure score journey is massively valuable. And then we also give you visibility into your customer's alignment. So you can see there we have alignment score, the red, the orange, and the greens. How well aligned is our customer compared to our golden baseline? And that's how Enforcer works. You create a golden tenant, you put your best level of configuration into that tenant, and then use the platform to compare all of your customers towards that golden tenant.
So can I just ask a question? So and I should ask if anybody has any questions or thoughts or anything, feel free to drop them into the Zoom chat as well. But so when someone syncs for the first time, here if I heard it right, they configure a level, if you will, the gold tier alignment, a baseline group. And then all of a sudden this starts just to come to life and begins to tell a very specific story in what they're producing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So the first part of a MSP's journey with Inforcer is really defining your baseline. Now, for those MSPs that have high expertise and high adoption, they already have that defined. And that normally is in the form of a list of policies that a project engineer would go through and configure manually for a new tenant. Now, what they do in Inforcer is you would create and provision a separate empty, let's call it a business premium tenant. You would spend time configuring and putting those policies into that tenant. Now, what Inforcer also helps with is actually defining what that baseline is. And that's where we give the expertise and the knowledge so that you can use our suggested policies, put that into your baseline tenant, and then you're dead right, Adam. You use Inforcer to quickly see where are all of my customers against that configuration level. Because right now, it's only your newest customers as an MSP that have your best level of security, purely down to the sheer time it would take to go back and revisit every single one of your customer tenants and configure them back to your current best standard.
Yeah.
We've got a quick question there in the chat. When we talk about golden tenant, is it the one we should use as a baseline and all policies included? Yes, absolutely. Great question. So yeah, you would have a golden tenant, and that is where you would put all of your policies in your baseline into that tenant. And Inforcer can help you with actually defining that baseline if you don't have the luxury of the expertise internally. A good percentage to be as close as to your golden tenant. Ultimately, you want every customer at 100%. Now, we understand that not every single customer is going to match your baseline exactly like for like. Some customers might require a custom, acceptance. They might have an office location in an obscure country that you need to change the policy for that particular client, which is why on the screen there, you can see the option to accept a deviation. Ultimately, that allows you as an MSP to still get customers up to 100% alignment, even if there are a few policies that don't match like for like.
Webber, can I just ask, Jake, so the naming conventions here are similar, but are you sort of working it off of naming conventions, or is there some additional smarts underneath the hood?
Yeah, one of the unique things about Inforcer is we don't require an exact name match in your baseline tenant to your customer tenant to show you if there's a deviation. That's hugely important because many of our competitors actually do require that. Now, that is pretty much useless or redundant for any new customer that you bring on board because the previous MSP might have called the policy something completely different. So what you can see there is, let's take that blocked sign-ins example. There's a spelling mistake on blocked sign-ins. And in your baseline, you have a standardized naming convention called allowed signing countries. We will show you if there is a name mismatch, but also if the actual settings underneath the policy are mismatched as well. So you can use Inforcer to rename policies to match your baseline. So you're driving standardization across the board, and also then to match the configuration. So again, you're driving standardization towards that golden baseline that you want all of your customers to adhere to.
Very clever. Very clever.
Yeah, and this one is, this hits on a massive pain for you as MSPs. If you are onboarding new customers, or you want to add new policies across all of your existing customers, if there's like a critical change in Microsoft, it takes hours and hours of time gets wasted into going into Microsoft portals and manually configuring all of your policies. We tend to reduce a standard Intune deployment down from 8 hours to 5 minutes. And the way in which we do that is you already have your template built in your baseline tenant, and Inforcer just gives you a quick mechanism to deploy those policies onto a destination tenant. So, in terms of deploying new policies, we are simplifying and streamlining that drastically. Also, Adam, you mentioned a really important thing earlier on in the call, which is the human error side. There's so much human error that's involved in reconciling invoices and checking vendor invoices, which is where CloudOlive come in. Also, there's a ton of human error involved if you're doing this work manually today. Who's to say an engineer might not click the wrong box? There's so many boxes to check in a Microsoft portal. So Inforcer also gives you consistency and reduces human error in terms of configuring those tenants as well.
Yeah, awesome. And so taking this to market, and I guess I can speak firsthand to how we are seeing Inforcer getting packaged, because we've got a client that actually runs it off of the business premium count and sells it per user, which I think you guys do per tenant. That's how you charge. And also charged with incredible margin and markup at a per tenant level as well. What are you seeing working? What's working the best?
Yeah, I guess to start with, we're ultimately a tool for the MSP. We are an operational efficiency tool. We're giving you hours back of resource, senior resource back in the business. And we are a risk reduction tool because we're helping you bring all of your existing customers up to a good level of security. With that being said, our commercially savvy clients are leveraging Inforcer to add additional revenue streams on top of the Microsoft licensing. You gave an example, Rossi, of a 16% markup on top of a license. Some of our MSPs are taking the business premium license, but then putting amazing security service offerings on top of that. So things like the backup of policy configuration as a service. Inforcer backs up all of your customers' policies once a day automatically. You can resell that to your customers. We got MSPs charging £50 a month just for that service alone, which covers the cost and more of Inforcer. We take a step up from that. We've also got MSPs building an end-to-end security service offering, leveraging all of the components of the business premium license, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for 365, conditional access, MFA, Intune, and they are charging that on as a per user cost. And some of them, honestly, are charging £50 per user per month for a managed Microsoft security offering. And we are charging them less than £50 per customer tenant. So yeah, you're dead right. We're seeing some clever things there from a commercial standpoint as well. And ultimately, we can help with that in terms of defining what that offering looks like.
Very good. So just to wrap it up, there's a question that came through, I think, to me directly. It's actually for you, Jake, in terms of, would you recommend doing all tenants in one go or just the largest ones? I think that's specific to Inforcer.
Yeah, it's a question we get asked every day. And again, it comes back to, what are you doing today? If you have all of your customers on business premium and you're leveraging a lot of the policies, absolutely, this is something you want to roll out across the board because you're immediately going to see resource savings and increased security. If you are low adoption and many of your clients are on business basic or business standard as a license type, but you're looking to do more, we might want to start smaller with you, and we can absolutely do that and help you adopt and learn more of the technology and ultimately grow together. So it's very much dependent on where you're at in your journey.
Awesome. So just being respectful of everyone's time, if there's any other questions, please pop them in. We'll probably wrap this up in a couple of minutes, but there's a couple of QR codes that you can see there. From the CloudOlive side, if you would like us, if you run Audit Tasking ConnectWise, you want us to run the Microsoft invoice that you get from wherever you buy your stuff from, we will do that completely end to end. So switch on the entire platform for you to get a real run at it. Have a look at every single potential, those 6% of line items that we expect to find. You'll be able to have a good chance to tidy them up and make at least have confidence across the board there. Also, the NC Easy that is actually available. Anyone that resells Microsoft as a standalone. To get started on that, book in with the QR code, or you can email Megan at cloudolive.com. She's locally based in Europe and been working with us for ages now. Perfect resource to help answer any questions you may have across any of it. And obviously, my email is just down there at adam@cloudolive.com. Welcome to ping me and ask any questions. And then what's behind your QR code there, Jake?
Nice. Yeah. Ultimately, the proof's in the pudding, as to say. So similar to you at CloudOlive, the best way to get started with Inforcer is to get hands-on. We can do a personalized demonstration. So if you book in with the QR code, and then we can actually set you guys up with a trial where you can test on, 3 of your customer tenants compared to your tenant or a baseline tenant, and really get a feel for how we can help you with that standardization. In addition to that, we are going to be at pretty much every big industry event coming up. So we would love to meet people in person. We're going to be at PAX 8 Beyond in Berlin, DataCon Miami, IT Nation Orlando. We're going to be at the IT Nation Evolve event. So we're going to be really active and busy. And for any UK-based businesses, we'd love to come and see you in your offices. We've got a big team here, and it's growing. So you can drop me an email as well, and we can get that arranged.
Good stuff. Well, I guess we'll give everyone 5 minutes back in their day. We really appreciate you taking the time. I hope you got some really good takeaways that you can at least challenge the team and everyone around, and hopefully implement some improvements. And when the time's right, I'm sure I'm speaking for Jake and myself here, would love the chance to work with you when it makes sense to you. All the best, and speak to you all very soon. Thanks for everything, Jake. That was good.
Yeah, really enjoyed that. Cheers, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, guys.